investor and you are still struggling to do your first deal because you don't have the funding and you can't find the money for your deals? Or are you a wholesaler and you've received some assignment fees, but there's some deals you want to stay in, but you simply haven't been able to stay in the deals because you don't have the money or the funding? Or are you a seasoned real estate investor and you've done a ton of deals, but you're sick and tired of paying high interest rates and you want to be in control of your business and you just want to get some more cheap money really, really fast? Well, if you answered yes to any of those three questions, don't go anywhere because I'm getting ready to plug you into the money right now. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Private Money Academy podcast. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. I'm the host of the show, and I want to welcome you here to the show. Here on the Private Money Academy podcast, we obviously always talk about private money and getting deals funded, getting money for your deals. But in addition to that, I typically have an amazing guest, an expert, to join me here on the show. And today is no exception. But before I introduce you to my good friend and expert in this area of self-storage that you're going to find amazing, I've got a free gift for you for just being here on the show. And that is, I just recently released my new book, which is titled Where to Get the Money Now, subtitle, How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Traditional or Hard Money Lenders. So here's the deal, folks. I just released this book, hit #1 on Amazon, and this book will show you step by step how I went from having no funding for my deals to over $2 million in less than 90 days, and how you can get plugged into money as well. We're not talking about traditional money. We're not talking about institutional lenders. How to get money very, very fast at super cheap, low interest rates. And I'm glad to send this book to you for free, just cover delivery. You can get the book for free at www.jayconner.com/book. Again, you can get the book. We'll ship it right out to you at www.jayconner.com/book, and we'll get you plugged into the funding for your deals right away. Well, as I mentioned, I've got an amazing guest and a very, very close personal friend of mine on the show with me today. A little bit about him before I bring him on. He and his affiliated companies, they focus in this area on the acquisition, the development, and the syndicating of self-storage facilities nationwide. Now, my guest currently owns and he operates over, check this out, 2,200,000 my lands square feet and over 13,000 units that he's got nationwide. Well, not only does he do the business, but he also teaches and coaches other real estate investors that want to learn about self-storage and how that works. His education company is selfstorageinvesting.com, and it provides courses and tools and live events, coaching and mentoring to help others launch, like you, self-storage businesses to enjoy the lifestyle. And, you know, as my guest and good friend is known to say many, many times, get in this business and you'll be free from tenants, free from toilets, and free from trash. Well, you know, one thing that he and I talk about, and he and I are in a high-end mastermind group together, his various companies are also very mission focused. He's got a heart of gold. He's got a servant's heart. And he is, so far to date, he's funded the construction of 12 houses. And I'm very, very familiar with this project, 12 houses down in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, by taking his staff, his partners, his friends, his business associates on their all expense paid mission trip to do houses for these people. Wow, what a servant's heart. With that, my good friend, Scott Meyers, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jay, it is good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I know we've got a mastermind meeting coming up pretty soon out there in Scottsdale. Are you going to make that one, or you don't know yet?
I am looking forward to it, and I will attend any and all of those that will be held in Arizona, because now I have 2 kiddos that are going to Grand Canyon University in Phoenix. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time out in Arizona.
Oh, that's great. Well, Carol Joy and I, we've already got our plane tickets. We've got our hotel reservations. So I look forward to seeing you in Scottsdale in just a few short weeks, right around the corner.
Likewise. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, as I told everybody in the introduction, I mean, your expertise, your wheelhouse is self-storage and self-storage facilities. But before we get into that world and your arena, first of all, just tell everybody how you got into real estate.
Yeah, wow. I think probably like most people out there, started with a single family house. And I learned from, and many folks on here will recognize this name and a whole lot won't, Carlton Sheets, who was one of the grandfathers along with Ron LeGrand and some of the others that taught people how to get into real estate. So I followed his program to buy houses, rehab them, refinance them, rent them out, and then replicate and do that over and over again. So the Burr method, before it was called the Burr method. And so that's how we got started. Bought a single family house. This was back in 1993 was the first one that I ever bought. It had an assumable VA mortgage on it, which I don't think there's any of those left out there any longer, and allowed me to get in and just assume that mortgage with very little experience in the way of even credit history at the time. I was a pretty young guy at the time, as you can tell by my age now and doing the math. So that's how it started. And then we moved on to buying up more. We refinanced, bought 2 more houses. Then we'd fix them up, refinance, and buy more. So we had about 75, I think 76 houses, and didn't really have the cash flow and the freedom that we wanted, that Carlton Sheets had mentioned in the home study system. So we thought, well, economies of scale will fix this. So we started getting into apartments and buying several complexes around central Indiana. But same thing, it just kind of bought us more tenants, toilets, trash, headaches, and the business model just wasn't right for us. We wanted to have time. We wanted the freedom that real estate brings. And so to do that in real estate, that means no tenants, no toilets. So that's either parking lots or self-storage. And you can't really build a lot of value in parking lots that we found. But once I dug into self-storage, I realized that, this is the place I need to be. People don't pay rent. You lock them out and you sell their stuff off and get paid. You turn it around by taking a blower and you blow the unit out. No paint, no carpet, no extensive clean out or repairs. And the more I looked into the business, I really saw the light and decided that this is the path I wanted to take. So sold our houses, our apartments, and now we've gone just 100% into self-storage. Made that transition about 2005 to where we are now today, which is where you mentioned, Jay. We buy existing facilities still. That same model is in place. We also convert industrial buildings, grocery stores, anything that is can be repurposed into self-storage. We'll buy it and convert it. And then we build from the ground up. And we do a lot of this by partnering and doing joint ventures and then syndicating the private equity, which is where you come in, Jay. And you know all too well what that looks like and how we can leverage other people's money and bring them along as limited partners to enjoy in the growth and this incredible business. So hope that wasn't longer than what you were looking for, but that's my story.
No, that was perfect. Well, tell us the story about your very first self-storage facility that you got into, and what lessons did you learn from that first deal?
Yeah. So the very first facility that I got into was we were sending out mailers to facility owners, just like we all do in real estate, to the asset class that we're interested in. And we ran across some business owners, and they were getting a business divorce. They were partners in a concrete business, and things weren't going so well, and they were parting ways. And this facility they owned together as well. Well, they, as what happens, unfortunately, in divorces, the other one side wants to hurt the other, and the other one definitely wants to destroy the other one. And so that's what they were doing. And they were destroying the value of the facility in the meantime. And so what that meant is we were able to get into this facility for, it appraised for $800,000 more than what the selling price was. And they just had to get out from under the note because those two had done such a good job of fighting each other that the bank was about ready to take the facility back. So I partnered up with the gentleman. We came in 50-50 cash and both on the balance sheet and on the loan request, and ended up moving forward on this first property by taking the existing tenants and raising the rates, which they hadn't been raised in 10 years. We let them manage. Well, let me see. We didn't let her. We freed up her future to pursue other career opportunities and put a kiosk in place because we don't have to manage these facilities with a person on site. And then we bought the land next door and expanded and built that up and leased that up as well. So I sold off to my partner eventually, and that leads to, I guess, the second part of your question, Jay, which is what did I learn from this? Well, first of all, I understood the power of leveraging and bringing partners in to projects. But I also, the lesson I learned is that I really want to be in that manager position. I wanted to have that control rather than 50-50. And it's not a control issue. It's just that, once I learned about syndication and moving on to other projects, that I can be the syndicator, the promoter, and the person who is calling the shots. And I can bring in limited partners for sometimes their balance sheets to sign on the loan as well, but mostly for the equity that is required to get into a facility. So that was probably the biggest lesson. And I also learned sometimes you shouldn't bring people that are close to you or friends into a business as well. Sometimes it doesn't always turn out well.
Yes, I've been down that road myself as well. So to make sure everybody understands what you're talking about, what do you mean by syndication? What's that look like, and what's the benefits of it?
Yeah. So in the true SEC definition, and I am paraphrasing, anytime you bring two or more people together into a project, and in this instance, a real estate investment, where one person is active, doing all the heavy lifting, doing all the work, and the other person is bringing money and they're passive. They don't have a hand in making decisions or doing any of the project management in a project. Then you've created a security, and then is governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so they state that you have to file that, and you have to register with a, depending on the fund or the entity that you set up, that has to be registered. So for us, that is a true definition. So for us, there's one person, as I just mentioned, me, that I am the promoter. I am the active person on the investment, whereas I bring in then a lot of private equity, a lot of limited partners that come into the project. They don't lend a hand. They're not involved in the decision-making process. What they're lending is money into the project. They're investing into the project with me. And so their role and responsibility is to wire the funds to close the project. And my responsibility is to do everything else, report back to them the progress, show the projections and how we are exceeding, hopefully meeting, or if we are underperforming on our projections, and then send out K1s at the end of the year, because they do become owners of this entity and they get to participate in the upside as well as in the depreciation as well. So that, and I guess a limited sense, without getting too far in the weeds, Jay, is the definition of a syndication and how we go about approaching the market.
Yeah. So, in the world of single family houses, there's multiple exit strategies, or there's multiple strategies of what someone's going to do with that property after they invest in it. You can buy a single family house, you can fix it up, you can flip it. You can wholesale houses and, wholesale houses out to other real estate investors. You can buy houses and you can fix them up and you can hold them, for the long term. So compare self-storage to what I just did with single family houses. Are there all these different strategies as to how you can go about the self-storage business? And second part of that question is, if there are different strategies, how do you decide which one you're going to do?
Yeah, I'd say property is property, in a general sense, and you can do all of the above. We buy them and wholesale them, or sometimes they're wholesale without us ever taking ownership or taking deed to the property. You can buy them, you can fix them up, turn around and flip them. You can buy them and turn them around partially and then sell them off and call it a flip or non. You sell it to the next person down the road that's going to take it the rest of the way. The way that we do it is typically we're a longer term hold, 3 to 5 years. That gives us time to, in an existing facility, really turn it around, raise rates, make the improvements, and reduce the expenses as much as possible to maximize the net operating income, and then sell it for maximum dollar. Our conversions and development, those projects take roughly 4 to 5 years to either buy a building, say a vacant grocery store, and convert it to self-storage, and then start from ground zero and lease it up to 80-85% occupancy and bring in our limited partners and allow them to have a payday and exit that is comparable to if they were to invest in any other type of entity or a business over that time, and really focusing on the internal rate of return. And the same goes for development. So in terms of an exit strategy, it's a little more difficult in the way that we head into those larger projects with our partners, and that we can't do a 1031 unless everybody decides to go along with us into the next project, which obviously they're not going to. So at that point, we will sell, and we will take our profits off the table, and then we will move into the next project. For our limited partners, for the most part, they are investing through a retirement vehicle, like a self-directed IRA or a solo or real estate 401k. So they don't really have those tax consequences at the exit. We also are looking at, in terms of an exit strategy, and I guess to back up a step, Jay, I think you and hopefully everybody on this call recognizes that you should always look at the exit strategy or determine what your exit strategy is before you get into a project. It's not a good plan to just say, well, there's a good deal, I'm just going to buy it and figure it out later. You can find yourself maybe you do not, a don't want her later on down the road, or you sit back and take a look at your empire and you realize, what a mess. I can't even manage this because I never paid any attention to what I was doing. So every time we hit into a project, we identify if it's a good deal, are we going to keep it? If we're going to flip this thing in a year, then we've got some, short-term capital gains taxes. That's a consideration. If we own it solely, then we can do a 1031 into something else. On do we want to do that 3 years from now? And I'm saying at any point in time, do we want to do that 2 or 3 years from now? What are the interest rates going to be, and what are cap rates going to be, and how do we expect the market and the economy? What's it going to look like? So we're always looking 6 months, a year down the road, 5 years down the road, and anticipating what's going on with the market, meaning interest rates, and our capitalization rates, which is how we value these facilities. And then overall, does this really fit in our business plan? I suffer, like everybody, from shiny objectitis, and I want to buy them all. If somebody else buys a self-storage facility or develop this one, and I'm going down the road, and I'm just like, that should have been mine. I should have built that. I should have bought that. And it's a real struggle. But if we get into that, we can paint ourselves into a corner if we get into that situation where we just, every once in a while we have to say no.
Yeah, for sure. So just to make sure everybody knows before anybody's got to jump off listening here to the podcast, how can people get in contact with you and your companies, Scott, to learn more about what you do and how you can help them in this area of self-storage?
Sure. So we go to selfstorageinvesting.com. That is the mothership, and there's links to our other websites that focus on the passive investing side of the business. But selfstorageinvesting.com is really the mothership. And this is where we've been at this longer than anybody in the business, teaching people the right way to go about investing in self-storage, just in hopes that, once again, a rising tide raises all ships. And so that we want everybody to be as educated as possible to go out into the marketplace before they do this, to avoid any mistakes. And then also, that just that kind of makes it more difficult for the rest of us if there are a lot of gunslingers out there that aren't really doing their due diligence and doing things the right way. So that is our main purpose in educating people in the business, because it just makes it easier for all of us to conduct business in this incredible niche.
Exactly. So if you're remotely interested, folks, in connecting with Scott and his team, that website again is www.selfstorageinvesting.com, selfstorageinvesting.com. We're coming out here, hopefully, on the other side of COVID and the pandemic and all that stuff. What are you seeing in the self-storage industry? I mean, overall nationwide, is the industry growing? How has COVID affected self-storage?
Yeah, self-storage is on a tear right now. I mean, if you look at the asset classes in real estate, no matter what stat you look at in terms of which asset class has done well, of course I'm biased, but the stats don't lie. Self-storage and industrial are right up at the top. I think data centers may be up there as well. Industrial has done really well with Amazon expanding, and the supporters of Amazon and the distribution centers that are now coming down to the smaller market size. And as we see, unfortunately, the slow death of retail, the industrial side and the industrial sector has benefited greatly. And self-storage, because we are heading into a time where we're heading into a recession again. We also have seen people come home from work and they had to clear out the dining room, the spare bedroom, the spare family room or living room, and create a workspace for one of the income earners, and sometimes two. They also, last year during the lockdown, when everybody was sent home from school, the colleges shut down, and the kids had to put all their stuff into storage again until they were able to go back. The kids that were in K through 12 came home, and we also had to make room in our homes to do school at home as well. So clearing out more furniture to make all of that happen. And then unfortunately, there's a whole lot of businesses that immediately when the lockdown started, it just went under because, customers, go figure, are the lifeblood of their business. And if they couldn't do it online, they went under. And so their inventory, machinery, and business furniture went into storage. And so, we see this was somewhat of a microcosm of what we see during a recession, and self-storage really benefits during a recession because businesses downsize and put their things in storage. Individuals downsize during a recession. They may have to move in with somebody else, a friend, or move back home. And so their extra stuff goes into storage. And so storage traditionally has always done better. We go up to the right during good times. People buy more stuff and they store more stuff. That's the nature of what we do here in this country. And if that's you, on behalf of the industry, I thank you for that mentality in this country. But during a recession, we get the hockey stick effect. And that's when banks slow down, development slows down of all sorts, and then demand for self-storage goes up. And so that's what we saw during the pandemic last year. And 2020 was an absolute banner year for our industry. We have been contactless and touchless since before it was cool to be contactless and touchless, using kiosks to rent a unit, much like a kiosk, because self-storage, renting a unit is a very low labor intensive transaction that can be done over the internet. And it can be done by way of a cell phone. Access to our facility, our software, getting a gate code, and even a key fob, and access on the phone to access a unit can all be done by way of a smartphone as well. So, Jay, we don't celebrate recessions personally, nor my company. We don't celebrate pandemics for gosh sakes, but our industry, I'm thankful for the industry that we're in, because we have benefited with a huge wind in our sail. Not only during a recession, as we're going to head into again, but then the pandemic, which kind of accelerated that, has really benefited our industry.
Well, no business thrives unless it's solving a lot of people's problems.
100% true.
And that's what you and your company and the industry is doing. I mean, due to the pandemic, you got all this increased demand for people needing to put their stuff somewhere. And unless your industry comes along and provides a place to put their stuff, then you're not solving that problem. Let's say someone is, and I tell you, it's the same thing as going on around here. It's like here in my little area where Carol Joy and I live, total area of only 40,000 people. I know of 4 brand new self-storage facilities that are under construction right now, 4 of them. And we already got them everywhere. It's like, my lands, people must have a whole bunch more stuff. But I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Are you doing new construction these days? Or are you still focusing on existing facilities?
A little bit of both. We were really focused in 2020 on construction. We had some projects already in the pipeline, and then also picked up some others from some folks that, we're just kind of taking the ball the rest of the way down the field. Some folks that had some stalls due to COVID and some funding issues. And so absolutely, we've been developing for a number of years now. We've got the team, we've got the experience. We're in several markets where we know where the demand is. And we just know it's a business model that we can replicate over and over again that allows us to look at a market. And Jay, if I could, just the reason why we see so many opportunities and why you're seeing, say, 4 facilities going up in your town is a lot of folks will think, well, boy, I see these things everywhere. Isn't the market saturated? And, how can we possibly, have enough demand for this? Well, when we go into a market, and we're looking at a place that potentially may be good for developing a self-storage facility, there's a lot of research that goes into that. First of all, our market is really 5-mile radius. That's all the further people are going to travel to a self-storage facility from their home is about 5 miles. And so within that 5 miles, if the facilities, the 1, 2, 3, 4 facilities are full, have a waiting list and they're raising rates every 3 or 4 months, then we know what equilibrium is in a market. It's, anywhere from 5.5 to 6.5 um, to 5.5 to 6.5 square foot per person. And anytime that we're below that, if there's only 3 or 4 square foot per person, we know that there's a lot of demand in that market. So that and rental rates will dictate when we're going to go in and build. So it's not a build it and they will come, or hope that they will come, and hope is not a strategy. And we spend millions of dollars on these facilities. And so that is the reason why we're seeing a lot of construction. And so we absolutely are bullish, because of all the factors that I just mentioned that are occurring in the market right now, which is creating a huge surge in demand for storage.
If someone is brand new to self-storage and they're really interested in exploring it and, really want to see if this makes sense for them, what's the best way for a brand new person to even get started? Where do they start looking?
Well, I think it starts with learning, so that they know what they are looking for. And so, no shameless plug, but we just got a lot of free resources on our website, again, just to help people. You don't have to spend a dime on it, so you know what you're looking at and looking for. Then begin to seek out, if you're part of a real estate investor group in your city and there's people that are in storage, then strike up a conversation. I'd ask you to ask them to go out to lunch to pick their brain, but we know that there's a whole lot of folks that maybe aren't interested in doing that these days. But if you can strike up a friendship, get into a conversation, or even a subgroup in some of these other real estate investor circles, or online with several meetups around your area, then that's the best way to get plugged in and just sit back and be a consumer of the information, and to be a student of the industry to know what's going on. I was in single family homes for a number of years. I was in commercial real estate, being multifamily. And although a lot of the skill set applies in looking at leverage and cap rates and underwriting, it's a different business. And so to understand the nuances is really key before you take that next and first step. We've seen, as you can imagine, on the education side of our business, we've seen a lot of folks that have taken that first step, and they stepped in a lot of doo-doo and created a lot of mistakes and messes for themselves. And then have come to us to help them unwind it, get out of it, or to survive that one, lose the battle, but win the war by understanding what it takes to succeed on the next one. So and then temper that with don't analyze too much, or analysis and paralysis by analysis, and analysis that causes paralysis. The saying that to spend too much time researching before you do actually pull the trigger. So learn about the business, get some good advisors and mentors around you before, to put some eyeballs on your underwriting and your offers, and obviously a good legal team or an attorney to look at your contracts before moving forward. Those are probably the best ways to avoid getting into a catastrophe.
My good friend and guest today is Scott Meyers, founder of selfstorageinvesting.com. Be sure and check out his website for the free training and resources that he has there. One last question for you, Scott, and that is, what are the most common mistakes, or some of the most common mistakes, that new real estate investors in self-storage make?
Yeah, I'm writing a book on it as we speak. That's going to be out before long. So I got 101 of them, because that's the title of the book. So I'll focus on, how about the overarching one? And that is, I think, and perhaps I'm guilty of this. We've been teaching and training people how to do this for 16 years. And, we state that it is a very simple and predictable business model, because it's compared to other businesses. It's a simpler and predictable business model. We know the numbers, we know the equilibriums, and we can go into an existing facility or a development project and make our projections and darn near hit our marks and beat them almost every time. But so I say that I'm a product of that. And that is, I think people have heard that enough, and they've heard that, this is a simple, less moving parts. You don't have the rehabs, you lock them out, they don't pay their money, and then you just blow it out and you're done. You move on to the next. And all that's true, but it's not a hobby. I mean, this is a business, and you have to treat it as such, and you have to walk the four corners of your business, and you have to understand it before you get in. As most people know that are in commercial real estate, you make a $10,000 mistake in your underwriting, meaning you missed some expenses by $5,000, and you missed, they overstated the income for late fees and other things that shouldn't have been counted. Well, a $10,000 mistake in underwriting is $100,000 to $120,000 in value that you would overpay for a facility. So you need to understand the nuances, how to value them, how to underwrite them before putting offers in. understanding how to analyze a market. And then for gosh sakes, you don't take your hands off the wheel and assume that this is a mailbox business, because no rental business is. I don't care who you say, listen to or who says it. It's not. It's a business, and a business needs to be tended. So long-winded answer to your question, Jay, but the mistake that people make is that they think and they hear and assume that this is a simple business because it's simpler than what they were doing before. But it means that they have to understand it and they have to tend it, and you do have to farm the business once you own it, and constantly be looking at ways to grow occupancy, to grow rates, and reduce expenses, and that is perpetual, and that is on a regular basis.
In other words, folks, don't start doing this business without joining hips with somebody that knows what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And of course,
Correct.
Scott Meyers is the expert in this arena. Scott, final comments and advice.
Final comments. Jay's, just good to see you again, my friend. I can't wait to see each other. I can't hold that back. You always make me smile, and looking forward to hopefully getting together and having dinner together as well with you and Carol Joy. And maybe we can get that old gray haired gentleman to pay our bill next time again too. That might be nice. And aside from that, gang, it's an exciting time to be in real estate. There's certainly a lot of changes, and there's some potential threats that are out there, but it's when everybody's running out that you should be not just running in again and shooting from the hip, but understanding, what it means to be in the real estate asset class and investing the way and where you should be investing. But now is absolutely an exciting time to be doing so. So with that, just great to be here. Thankful for the industry, the real estate industry and self-storage, and happy to help and assist anyone, anywhere along the way that we can. And just be kind. Just choose to be kind. How's that? After a long week so far, and it's only Tuesday, I've had some difficult conversations. So how about I leave it with let's just choose to be kind to one another.
I love it. There you have it, folks. My good friend and expert in self-storage, Scott Meyers. Visit him at www.selfstorageinvesting.com. Well, so glad to have everyone here on the show. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, wishing you all the best. Here's to taking your business to the next level, and we'll see you right here on the next Private Money Academy podcast.